What's up and welcome back, guys, to Talking Nutrition, episode 55 today.
Really going.
All right, you hear something in the background.
Sorry, it was my Instagram.
We're off to a good start, guys. We're back. You know what? I was going to say, well, let's just start over, but no, we're going to leave it in. We're going to leave it in.
It was Matt Frazier talking.
Oh, then it's okay.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll ever quit? Like anything he does?
No.
Speaking of quitting, I don't think so. What did you
he well, technically he's quit or retired, but it's more so pivoting, right?
Yeah. Which ties into today's topic. Mm-hmm. When is it okay to quit? Right? I think we do talk a lot about kind of like doing the work and overcoming, obstacles and making shit work anyway and keep going, show up every day. But so to the listeners, so Christine shared a post with me that I want to read because I thought it was a really good point. And it's definitely something we haven't really talked about, which is kind of cool because, every time we're like, what do you want to talk about today? We're like, not 100% sure. So this is actually kind of like a new topic, which is really cool. So let me just read this out loud real quick. So here's the post, right? So contrary to popular opinion, quitting is for winners. Knowing when to quit, change direction, leave a toxic situation, demand more from life, give up on something that wasn't working and move on is a very important skill that people who win at life all seem to have. I thought that was a great post. Because it is actually true, right? So again, we talked about this real quick before we hit record, but don't take this as like a thing where, hey, when things get difficult, we just need to quit. Like it's not like that. But at some point, there's definitely a time and place, and we both agree on this. To pivot, to maybe drop something, to quit something, and I do also think that these situations are going to come up at some point. But what's up, Christine? So obviously you shared this post with me. You had a couple of good points there, kind of relating it to, your stuff as well as a client. So let's actually start there. First of all, with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I shared this with Johan because of something I'm personally doing, personally quitting. And then also I had a client quit something that was hard for him. Quitting, and both of these situations, they're very hard to do, but in the long run is the smartest choice. It might not feel like it's very hard to make the decision, but when you really weigh everything out and look at the big picture, it is the right decision. So for me, I've chosen to discontinue KA training. I've had it for about 2 years now. And for the last half year, even a little bit longer than that, I've been kind of going back and forth with it between, continuing to build it or, discontinuing it pretty much. And finally I came to the conclusion that I am going to discontinue it. And it was not an easy decision at all. It was very back and forth. I'm going to be letting so many people down. And I did. I got emails just from people saying, they're so sad and stuff. But it was crucial for me to do that, just in terms of being able to delegate more time to other things, to keep things growing in my business, but more so keep things sustainable. It wasn't something that I was super passionate about anymore. And it's not to say that you just give up on something because you're not passionate about it, but it's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain. It was taking away from my KA nutrition. And I didn't like that. Like KA nutrition is like my baby. All my energy and everything goes into that. And it wasn't doing well enough for it to be worth it. And I also wasn't like, it wasn't doing enough, but I also wasn't doing it wasn't doing well, but I also wasn't doing enough. And like, it was just because it wasn't something that I loved doing. But it also, like I said, was just taking away from different stuff. So I decided to discontinue that. And I definitely feel relief now that I have. So in my opinion, yeah, I quit. There was something I quit. But it was for the better, long term. So then with my client, I think that a lot of people can relate to this in some capacity. I mean, this is similar to me with CrossFit too, like quitting. Oh my gosh, my dogs. Like quitting competition, right? Like I quit. Like I stopped doing it. So this client, he was training for an Ironman and also wanting to lose weight. Okay. So we had this like timeline and okay, we were trying to we were in a cut. We were trying to get him down in body fat. He was also training for the Ironman. Those two things do not go hand in hand. Okay. They don't. This is how you crash and burn. I was doing things with his diet where we would, try and stay away from that. But there was also this other part to it where like he had a really stressful job, right? So like there's just all of these stressors happening and he's putting so much stress on himself to perform well for this Ironman. And we started to see things like he started to see dysfunction happening, like he was getting injured. And like I kept telling him, like I was trying to educate him on like this is like really hard to do without burning out and running into like dysfunction, whether it's injury risk, whether it's hormones, like things like that, mental health. And so it like got to the point where everything was just kind of falling apart for him from his nutrition. Like he couldn't adhere to it. And he's like this, the nutrition isn't stressing me out or anything. It's like everything else. I'm like, well, you're not adhering to it and you're getting, because he can't adhere to it because he's so like messed up from everything else that's going on. I'm like, so yes, it is a stressor because you're trying to do all these things and like you don't have the capacity to deal with this and like put your best effort forth because there's just not enough room there. Like his stress cup is overfilling, right?
Yeah. And it's a deficit too, right?
100%. Like the cut,
so it is
the
a
work
stressor
stress,
to the body.
The Ironman, period. You should not be trying to cut with an Ironman, with Ironman training. Like, and I really tried to meet him in the middle in a timeline of like, hey, we're going to cut for this shorter period of time. And then we're going to pull out and start to, really increase food and whatever and get in a good spot before the Ironman. But then, his wife, like, obviously it was really impacting things at home as well. And I can only say so much. And like, I don't want to overstep my boundaries or anything like that. Right. So, and the thing is, he was a good friend of mine. Like I've known him since like elementary school. So anyway, she sat him down and like had a talk with him. And he came to me and was like, she said these things. And I was like, and he knows that I had been hinting at this stuff for a long time, and educating him on, why these things are happening. And, so ultimately the decision, like the foundation of all of this was that he was trying to do an Ironman with not having the capacity to do one. Like with all the stress and like all this stuff in his life, it was not the right time. And so he chose to quit and not do it. And it was really, really hard for him because like he had done all this training, he had told people, right? So there's almost like an identity thing attached to it. He felt like he was just letting himself down because he feels like he should be able to handle all of these things. I'm like, no, like we're not built to handle all of these things. And anyone who looks like they're handling all these things, there is some dysfunction happening. Usually we just can't see it. Right. So yeah, that was something that I thought was really, it was very hard for him, but I know that's going to lead to like a lot of growth for him down the road. And he's going to start to see like his relationship improve and his health improve. And he's starting to strength train more versus running and swimming and biking, so his body's going to respond better from a fat loss standpoint. He's going to be able to adhere to his nutrition better. So everything starts to, it's like a domino effect just by removing this one thing, right? That was really holding him back from a lot. And it's not to say that he can't, go and try and do one down the road when he's in a better place to do it. Maybe, we focus on fat loss. I mean, he's recovering now for a while, but like we focus on fat loss. We get, that body composition into a better place. Then we go, down the road and try and do an Ironman or something like that. When stress levels are just a little bit better than they were. So yeah, I just think that was really big of him. And I think a lot of people just struggle so much in situations like that because it was like that with me for CrossFit. Like I'm like giving up. I'm quitting. But it's going to improve. It did improve my overall well-being. It's going to improve his overall well-being and in the end, the best choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hard to, when you have those big goals like that, it's also about the goal setting, it's also about kind of like having a goal that's achievable, that's realistic, and having the right expectations, which I will say in people's defense, we tend to, a lot of people don't know that. We tend to think that we can do that all, like you said, we're supposed to be able to handle the stressful job and sleep deprivation and high intensity training. And the list goes on, you know what I mean? And like that we're just supposed to be able to do this stuff, We watch another fucking David Goggins video and we just keep on pushing. And nothing against the dude, by the way, at all. Like, but you know what I mean, though, right? Mm-hmm. It's always kind of like go hard, and you're just supposed to deal with this. And of course, like yes, we do have to do the work, but at some point, like the thing is, the body decides. We don't. And if it's too much, and the body decides it's too much, we can want whatever we want to achieve or do or whatever. But we're going to hit a wall, we are going to hit a wall.
Yeah. Like if he would have done that, the Ironman, he would have hit a massive, massive wall when he was done. Yeah. And he would have just been in a horrible, horrible place. Cause like there was other stressors, like there was gut issues. And you have to remember, this is all intertwined because the root of it is stress, right? Like it's causing gut issues. It's causing, mental health issues, anxiety attacks, like bouts of depression. It's all intertwined, and people like I mean, it's just hard for them to understand or like be able to decipher what I need to take off my plate, right? Because they just sometimes they don't have the knowledge in order to do something like that, and they don't see that like that is the what am I trying to say? Like the Ironman was the common denominator that was causing all of the issues. The Ironman training. I mean, it was the Ironman training. It was trying to do fat loss, and it was and it went against like what I like do as a coach. Like I did not feel right. So I was trying to like figure out ways to, help in terms of like trying to do both, but you just can't. And I would tell him that I'm like, this is like really hard for me. I'm like, it's like, I told a client yesterday, in a check-in, like we're working on her hormonal health and people are so impatient. Like we've been working on it for like 2 months. And when it's hormones, it takes more than 2 months. She's like, when can we go into our next cut? And she's improving right now. She's like, her body composition is improving while we're in maintenance, focusing on hormonal health, more than it improved when we were in a cut. And I'm like, I can't do this. I'm sorry. Like when we're focusing on hormones, I will not put anyone into a cut. I can't do it. Morally, it's just something I can't do because I know the effects, right? I know. So I educate them on that, but it was definitely like a moral thing of like, this isn't working.
Nay, and that even plays into a lot of stuff which I do think is wrong in the fitness space. Because people will be like, I'm struggling with hormones, gut, whatever it is, stress, all this stuff. But then they'll go somewhere and be like, hey, I want to lose weight. Okay, cool. Here are your calories. Let's get started. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there's way too much of this in the fitness space where it's just, hey, let's give it another try. And, let's cut more and go to the next diet. And shit needs to change. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of good people out there, especially these days. Maybe that's just the people that we're connecting with and people that we follow. But like, there's some good people out there. But like you just mentioned, like we're trying to do this in the healthiest way possible for you. It's cool if we want to get you lighter. I'll get you lighter, right? But isn't it nicer to set you up for like long-term success where yes, you're lighter, but you're also going to be healthy?
Yeah.
Or are we not going to care about hormonal health, feeling like shit, getting into issues down the road, right? Because it's really long term. Like we can't think just short term, and it's difficult to. I fully understand. I 100% understand. Currently working with someone. Especially in the beginning, a lot of stuff going on. Bodybuilding background, no cycle for a very, very long time. Kind of like all over the place a little bit. Digestion was not great. High stress, really low energy levels, just altogether, just not feeling great. You know what I mean? Signed up with a coach, and that coach kind of like treated it as in like, hey, now you're going to get on stage again. And she's like, no, I don't want that. Like, just want to cut a little bit for summer. You know what I mean? Got put on a way low like meal plan, and there was really no room for anything any flexibility. Because she was just supposed to stick to the meal plan, and she's like, okay, I'm going to stop. And then she came to me, and she actually asked me like, hey, is it okay if I have like one like free meal every now and then? I was like, have one free meal fucking every day. Like we need to get you to a more balanced place. But why I'm bringing this up is that things just add up at some point. Kind of going back to today's topic. We pulled her out of the cut, right? So quitting also. I've done
that with 2 clients recently, quitting the cut.
Yeah. We quit because she came to me in a deficit. She's, hey, I want to lose body fat for summer. It kind of felt, like how the body responded for a couple of weeks. And I told her, hey, we can't do this. We have to go back to maintenance. So we have to get you feeling good first and figure this stuff out before anything. And it's improving a little now, but there's still a lot of stuff going on also at maintenance. So we need to take our time there, And that's why we stopped that deficit, right? I was like, okay, a couple of weeks, let's see. But we decided to not do it anymore. And now we're looking into hormones. Gut health is improving, luckily. Working on stress management and sleep and those kind of things. And then once she feels good, we can look into further goals. thing is too, she actually mentioned, because she was doing cardio, I pulled her cardio as well, which I felt really, I know we talked about this, you and me, but I felt bad about that because I know she really enjoys that, you know what I mean? But again, the body kind of decides, and at this stage, stress is too high, and we had to pull that too. So we pulled the deficit, pulled the cardio, unfortunately, right? And I told her too, like, at some point you got to get it back, but for now it's just like that temporary trade-off, and it's difficult. And then she's like, "What about CrossFit?" Because she really wants to try that out too. I was like, I'd love to give you that, like, if you would like to try that, but just not yet, because right now, like, things are slowly improving. We got to work on this. But again, going back to what you said too, for your client as well, maybe you can do Ironman next year, or anywhere, down the road where there's maybe a little bit less stress, and life kind of allows for that, because we cannot do everything all at once,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I had a client, I've pulled 2 clients out of cuts recently. One was, well, somewhat recently. One was like the hormone one I was just talking about. I actually did testing on her because like she was doing everything right. And it was really weird, like just very minimal progress. And so I started to pull her out, and then I did some testing, and her hormones were definitely like out of whack. There was quite a bit going on there. And so now we're working on that, and she's seeing the progress there at maintenance, but she's still just like, she wants more, right? Like she's being a little bit impatient. So then there was another one that we did a ton of work on, like her relationship with food, because she had a lot of emotional eating popping up, and she just improved immensely. And then we're like, okay, like let's try, and we'll try and go into a cut. And we went into a cut, and it was like almost like everything started coming back. It's like she went back into that mindset. And I'm like, this is never worth it. Never, ever is it worth it for you to be in a cut, and we're still having those like binging episodes. It will only perpetuate the issue. And I have to remind her, right, of like, she's been in that for years and years and years and years. And so 6 months of working on something that you've been doing for 20 years is a short period of time, right? So we quit the deficit. I also did testing with her. There was some hormonal stuff going on with her, which will play into emotional eating. Like that can very much happen, right? So now and she was upset. Like she felt like she was starting from like, day one is pretty much her words, which realistically isn't true, right? And we talked about that. But now she sees, we're at maintenance. She's not having these episodes. We're working on her hormones, her mood and everything, digestion, everything is so much more stable. And so she quit and benefited from quitting, right? Like we quit. We're like, we're not doing this. And so, yeah, it's very hard to do initially, but, and like something to touch on with that too is it's not something to just like make an instant, you don't just want to make that instant decision of like, I'm quitting. Like you definitely need to like weigh out the pros and cons of like what's happening, wait it out a little bit, and sit on it. Like you don't just quit, right? That's not what we're saying. There's gotta be discussion. There's gotta be weighing out the pros and cons. And so, yeah, anytime like that's happened with a client, we see the benefits. And same with myself. There's always this benefit that comes after. And sometimes it's temporary. Like you can go back and do that thing down the road. So I think this is just a really important conversation because there's like these high achievers that want to just do everything and it gets them into trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. This kind of reminds me of when I last did CrossFit in 2020. It was like December, November. Because at first I stopped training CrossFit first and then eventually stopped coaching CrossFit as well. For kind of similar reasons, but like either way, I needed energy for like other stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I will say with CrossFit, I just burned out. Like that was the main reason why I stopped training CrossFit. Just ended up being too much. You know, the body said, "Hey, I've had enough." Because usually what happens if you keep pushing, right? You either get sick, you get injured, you burn out.
If you don't slow down, your
happen.
Body will slow you down.
100%. And that's what happened. And I vividly remember the actual moment too, where I started, the session, and we started off with like the training program was a little too intense, but we started off with heavy clean and jerks, and I just felt like it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? I was so beat up. Everything hurt. Everything just, I was like, I gotta sit down for a sec, And then I was like, totally just had to stop. I just had to stop. You know what I mean? So I dropped CrossFit. Okay. And over time, I had a bit of a weird thing with training for a little while. But then I kind of got into power building, and then bodybuilding felt way better. Half a year later, quit coaching CrossFit because it just ended up as being too much as well, right? Because I started this company, I really started to, nutrition coaching, being very busy. You need time for that, right? And if you then work on your own stuff all day, train, and then also coach other people, the CrossFit class, just ended up being too much. And I was like, it's a little scary because, again, pros and cons, right? You start to think, and it's like, well, yeah, I know I kind of should do this because I need the energy and the focus for my own company. But then I'm also kind of afraid because it's removing income, and it's the classes that I did really enjoy doing and those kind of things. But again, I decided to quit then, and it was probably the best decision I made that year for my business, because all of a sudden I had way more focus there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we do need to be aware of that. I've been asked to coach CrossFit again, but I just had to say no, because I just have my own thing. Would I like to? Yeah, like I loved coaching those classes. It was a lot of fun, But I also know it would be too much.
The capacity. You don't have the capacity to do it. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm at capacity here pretty much, like, or at least I'm getting there. Like it's a lot. Same for you. Like we're a one-man show so far still, At some point in the future, that's going to change. But for now, like there's only so much you can do. And you need your energy. We got to be there for our clients, first of all. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. And then sometimes you got to be like, hey, this one thing, it's got to go.
It's always been that. Like, it's my clients, and that's it. Like, that is the main thing. If something else is taking away from that, or like is draining me, or like something like that, I'm taking this like away, because I don't want this to be impacted. I want my quality of coaching to stay the same. And that means like, okay, maybe my mailing list isn't right now, or like maybe this isn't right now. And just, I'm kind of always evaluating that, I guess. Like if I really start to, like, I went through some crazy burnout this past like month and a half. And I wasn't really posting on social media. I pulled back on the podcast. I'm every other week instead of every week. I'm not really doing my emailing list. I have to do that in order to keep this where I want it to be. Right. So, that kind of goes, I'm not quitting these things. I'm putting them to the sideline for a bit so that I can keep this. Right. Yeah. So, quitting, putting it off to the side for a minute, same type of thing.
Yeah. It's all seasonal, and I kind of want to end it off with this, because we do need to understand that everything is seasonal. Whether it's going to be performance wise or body composition wise, or even relationship to food, or literally like anything, there's going to be times where it's fucking awesome, and there's times where it's going to suck. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then most of the time it's kind of like, okay, you know what I mean? Yeah. Most of the times like, we're good. But it's going to be awesome sometimes, and it's going to suck sometimes. And that's cool. Like we do need to be okay with that, which is a difficult thing sometimes. But that's literally how life works. You know what I mean? It's all up and down. Just how the weight fluctuates every fucking day. Mm-hmm. It's the same shit for everything. Yeah. So that being said, just bring up one little thing here. Quitting when you shouldn't, kind of. It's when it gets a little bit more difficult, because you want to work through stuff. Whether it's weekends, vacations, social settings, like those kind of things where we know, like you mentioned, with like binge eating, for example, we're not just gonna quit. Like that's not something I think we should be dropping. You know what I mean? That's something that's difficult. It's going to be difficult for quite a while, probably, but we can still work through that. And those kind of things are not worth quitting. So I will say that, right? Yeah. Because there are things that are worth working through, and that will then down the road lead to things being better as well. Right. Agreed. So, what do you say, Christine? Wrap it up. Yeah. Do you have any like updates, anything coming up, or is it just kind of chill on your end? Me and Eric are starting to like flip houses, which I'm really excited about. That's cool. Yeah. What else? There was one thing I wanted to say. Oh, I've got a few like functional clients. Something I haven't really like put out there, but I have like a functional tier of coaching where it's really just focusing on like gut health, hormonal health. We do a lot of testing. And like, it's not fat loss related or anything like that. I mean, it can be obviously when you focus on those things, but it's more so just helping people improve, feel better, get to the root cause of their issues, and work on improving that. So it's pretty awesome. I had a client who had some parasites. I do the GI map. And so like, I'm just so obsessed with like learning about that and seeing it. It's so cool. So we're in a process of like getting rid of that. There's some clients that have like candida or like H. pylori, stuff like that, are what we're working on alongside hormones, thyroid and things like that. So it's fun. Yeah. I've been getting more into kind of like, complex cases, I guess you could call it like that. Mm-hmm. Or at least it's just been coming up recently. And I feel like we're going to have to do a whole lot more of that, because it's quite problematic if you look at it, how common these kind of things are becoming now. Big time. But as a coach, I'm like you, like I'm like, it's kind of exciting too, because you're like figuring stuff out. You can really get someone to really feel good and like problem solve, Oh yeah. It's super interesting. Mm-hmm. I will say though, to anyone listening, like this shit is difficult to figure out sometimes, and it's going to be months. Very much so. And it's very difficult to kind of stick to it as well as a client. Yeah. Like my functional tier of coaching, it's like 6 months or a year. Like, yeah. And it's more than likely a year. Like this stuff takes a long time. Yeah. But if you don't figure it out and work on it, it can become a really big issue down the road. So that's why it takes like longer up front, right? But yeah, so important to take that time and not rush it. For sure. That being said, where, like, let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, hey, I kind of need some extra help. Like, where can people find that? Is it on your website? I'll link it in the description. Or should they email you or? Yeah, they can just apply to my coaching through my website, which is at the link in my bio on my Instagram. That'll come through. If you want more of like the functional coaching, like it's not fat loss, it's like all hormonal stuff like that.
just say that in the application, and then I'll see it and we'll go from there. I'll answer you and we'll go from there. Cause I am taking functional clients on, but I'm not taking right now. I'm full capacity with my other, like just, I don't want to call them basic, but like Gen Pop, like fat loss type of client.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That being said, we do. So shameless plug as well.
Yeah.
We are currently taking on people. So if you do want to have the fat loss, the muscle gain, etc., we do still take people on currently. So I'll drop the link down below as well. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to drop us a quick review. It was a huge favor. We do this for free to help you. And really the only thing we want to charge for that is a quick 5-star review, you know? That being said, I'll talk to you soon, Christine. And to the listener, see you next week.